you guys were able to make it out today to the early college PLC meeting. Again, we're just so grateful you guys make the time to come and see what we can do to help support you in the field. Just as far as our meeting agenda on the very top, you'll see that we're going to be looking at some of the updates that are happening in the early college space, especially with the legislative session coming up. And then one of the main things we'll be looking at is that post-secondary opportunity bill that Nate has been in charge of getting that going to the Hill, as well as our POPs, the potential of practice. And that's going to be really interactive today. We are going to be having you guys help us determine what topics you would like to talk about. We will have an ongoing one, but just a heads up that be ready to share some things that you are seeing that you're doing really well, or you're excited to hear about from other people that are doing really well. And then just some feedback on some equity labs as far as incorporating that into the early college space. I believe some of you guys have participated with Holly Bell with that in the past, and we're going to be looking at what that could look like in the early college space. Our learning intentions for today are just identifying questions concerning the early college updates, envisioning ways early college bills could be improved, and collaborating with peers on topics of your choice. And lastly, considering the design of how that evolving equity lab experience could look like. So as we begin, we just wanted to recognize, are there any newbies, anybody new to our space? Feel free to jump in and introduce yourself, either on voice, or you're welcome to drop it into the chat as well. And again, I just dropped that link in for those of you that just joined in for that agenda. Okay, let's transition into our celebrations. Any celebrations that are personal or professional that you guys would like to share? I do have one. It's not me, but I feel like I'm a part of the team. So I'm kind of excited that Cam Rising is going to be coming back to the U of U. I just have to say, we were at the Rose Bowl and we saw, it was so fun to be there, but it was so sad to see the injury happen and just how it deflated a little bit of our team effort. So me on that side, I'm like, yes, one more year. We've got him our senior year. So that's my personal collaborative happy moment. Any others you guys want to share?
So in the vein of skiing, since we were talking about that earlier, a friend of mine's 45th birthday was on Saturday. And so we skied 10,000 feet in the backcountry, which has been like, he's been talking about doing that for a long time. So I felt honored that he asked me to join him on it. It was a really, really fun day.
Of course, I have to ask, Nathan, where'd you guys go?
I can't tell anyone that.
Okay.
I was up Lance Canyon.
Yeah.
Off Murdoch Peak.
Oh, that's a good response, Nate. I can't tell anyone where I was. Any other things you want to share, things that are happening in your LEAs?
I'll share something.
Awesome.
Last spring, last January, I guess I should say, we hired 2 additional CE advisors through Weber State. So they actually are Weber State employees, but we hired them to work exclusively with our students in our district. So they are in our schools 1 day a week, doing extensive concurrent enrollment and college advising. So the kids are getting not just, what classes should I take in high school that are concurrent enrollment, but how does that lead to a career? And then, way beyond that to help them plan out a career. And it's been a huge success. We have our people are overbooked. They've got appointments, just full every day when they're in the schools. We need to hire another one. And it's just been amazing. So.
Camille, that's so exciting to hear. I just like grinning ear to ear, and I can see other people clapping because it's like, wow, we want to learn more about that. That sounds like
it's awesome. It's costing us, but I think it's totally worth it. So
So feedback from students, parents, and teachers, it's all
Oh,
pretty
they-
positive.
All positive. Yeah, they just are, I mean, it's just like been a huge, just to have that ability to work with someone one-on-one and plan out what they're going to do for college and how to, you know, navigate all these other things while they're in high school it's been great.
Wow, wow. You know what would be neat is just, it would be fun to be a fly on the wall and during these conversations and just to hear the kids being able to project and go, oh, this is a possible pathway.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think-
Well, another thing that's been so fun is some of them are first gen students and they're like, I finally feel like I can do this now. I actually have a plan and I can take these classes and, you know, and then other people who've said, oh, I had our assistant superintendent's daughter went in by herself, didn't invite her parents, went in and met, and she says, I learned more about what I'm going to do for the next few years than in any appointment I had, you know, because our counselors don't have time to do that. And they don't have all of the knowledge to do that as to what's happening in at the university. So it's just been really great. And our counselors are loving it too. They love the fact that those people are in the school and they can refer students to them. So
Wow,
it took a while. It took a while for them to love it, but they do now.
that's so awesome. Camille, thanks for sharing that. And Nathan, I agree. I think that might be one of a possible things to share maybe in a breakout room, because that is so incredible. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you. Any other celebrations? Again, it can be personal and professional. All right.
Christy, can I share one other thing? And I think we talked about this during our last meeting, but I think it's worth sharing again. If you look at race and ethnicity course taking levels for early college courses, both kind of within the AP world as well as the concurrent enrollment world, since we have started like engaging as a statewide community on closing gaps with intention, we have seen significant jumps for two groups in particular, Latino students and language learning students. And statewide over the last 3 or 4 years, I think that there's an 8% increase in Latino, or like you could say there's Latinos course taking has gone up 8% over what the kind of average student has, like closing the gap by 8%. And like at a statewide level, like numbers like that, you do not see within a time domain of 3 years. And it's all thanks to the work that you all are doing, including, you know, all the different, like strategies that you're using across the communities. So just like, what an awesome thing to celebrate. We'll have some more explicit kind of conversations connected to those changes in our April meeting, Christy, March, April, I think it's April. But I like just looking at the data preliminarily, it's really exciting to see what you all are doing. So thank you.
And to dovetail off of what Nathan just said, we're seeing the same exact representation in AP for our students there too. And it actually, when we met with our AP people and they came in and they were looking at the data with us, they were like, what are you guys doing in Utah? This is incredible. Look how much it's increased for our Hispanic students, especially. And I turned around and said, it's our teachers. It's everyone that's in our district helping out our students. So the kudos goes to you guys. Thanks for all you do. All right, let's quickly transition into the next part of our meeting. We are at the updates section, and this is where Nate and I are going to tag team a little bit and share a little bit about what's going on in that early college space. As Nate alluded to, the first item on our updates is it's coming soon, our early college application data. And we did throw in a link there from last year's, just so you have a remembering, because you're like, what exactly is this? So if you click on that link, you can see what last year's data looked like. And this is what you can kind of anticipate as far as having it broken down into different groups. There's tabs on the bottom broken into specific LEA data for CE, AP, and IB. But then we've broken it down into the student groups, the strategies, the barriers, the assets, all those questions that are on the application. So again, just a review for those of you that were here last year, but a preview for those of you that are new, so you can kind of see what will be up and coming within the next, I think we'll have it out definitely by April. We're really close. I think we're 2/3 done on that one. But again, just letting you know that that will be coming forth really soon, and we're excited to share that with you. And that will turn it over to you, Nate, for the Equity Lab.
Thanks, Christy. I'm also happy to share, just so that credit gets to where credit's due. Christy is all finished with her data in this space, and the reason we don't have it available is because of Nate. On our team, we lost our 18-month, she had worked with us for 18 months, executive assistant in the fall time. And so we have hired a new fantastic assistant, but we're still kind of getting her up to speed. And so we will have that data available as soon as we can. We usually shoot for January so that everyone can use it as you're kind of setting up courses for the subsequent school year. We'll have it out to everyone as soon as we can. So next up, we have like scheduling for this kind of evolved Equity Lab opportunity that we have alluded to. I'll talk more about what like the potential. I don't even know if we'll get too much into structure today. We'll talk more about that at the April meeting, but we want to block off some time on the calendar. And so we thought it would be worthwhile for you all to kind of weigh in with regards to what time of year makes the most sense for you. So what I would love for everyone to do in the chat is you have 3 choices. This money is kind of earmarked for fiscal year 23, and that's why late summer is not one of those choices. But the 3 choices you can see on the notes, those choices are May, early June, or late June. So what this is going to look like is roughly a full day experience. Any of you who attended the previous Equity Lab will look like kind of have a picture of what this will look like. And it's basically an opportunity for you to come together, look at your local data, and then make decisions about what strategies you want to use going forward. This is a kind of like supported process aligned with what the application process for the early college grants, APIB and CE, already does. And so there will be like explicit connections to questions both regarding the reporting for this school year, as well as the application for the upcoming school year. So if you're new to the process, it might be an interesting experience, or if you just want some time set aside for your kind of leaders within your community to come together to have conversations about how best to close gaps and just grow your concurrent AP and or IB programs, this experience might be for you. So it is, as I've alluded to, absolutely optional. There's no expectation of it this year, and we'll talk more about what role it'll play in the broader ecosystem later today. So I would be most appreciative if everyone could put one of those 3, May, early June, or late June. Looks like a lot of folks are already throwing that into the chat. And then I'm going to tally these while we kick it over to our next updater. I like the ... Kari. It'd be okay. Right. And so I'll tally those, and then you'll see within the next month or so, probably less, you'll see a calendar hold go out connected to this event. Feel free to accept it. There is no expectation that when you accept it that you are like mandated to attend. It can just be a placeholder on your calendar until we get some more explicit details for that experience. So any questions before we ask our friend at UC Sid Grua to offer her updates?
I am having camera problems, so there. I'm pleased to say that we have a 23-24 CML. I'm trying to upload it right now, and I'm having senior moment because I only do this once a year, but by the end of the day, you'll see it uploaded. Every year there's changes. This year, I think there were 150 different changes to 900 courses. I think the most significant thing that comes to my mind, and Nate, you may add more with me, is that We had a complete review of all the life science biology courses by Milo Mon. And these courses have been evaluated as to whether they meet the SEED standards or do not meet them. So whether they are foundational or elective credit, no, elective is the wrong word, foundational or other credit courses. And this is a very positive experience. I believe that Milo was serious when he told me he was pleased with the results of our faculty talking about cross-cutting concepts and science and engineering principles. So one down, chemistry and physics to go. That'll happen sometime in the next little while. But to me, that's the most significant change.
Can I jump in for just a second to
Please do.
say that the concurrent enrollment science courses had not been updated for 20
Ever.
over 20 years. And so that's the purpose for Milo going through them, is that the alignments that we have in the system kind of implicitly are aligned with science standards that are now 20 whatever years old. So given that the SEED standards came out a few years ago, we thought that now is the time to start updating those alignments. And like Sid said, Milo has been really pleased with the results, and the submissions that we've gotten from institutions of higher education have been really high quality. So we appreciate that collaboration.
The other thing you'll see is a smattering of courses in cybersecurity and a smattering of additional courses in entrepreneurship, which seem to be new CTE areas. Beyond that, it's just standard stuff. I have to hats off to the USBE specialists, because we've always had things approved for 1 year or for a short period of time for various reasons. And then there's never been really good follow-up. This year, they explained why it was being approved for 1 year, and had a lot of institutions submit probably 30 or 40 courses for follow-up. And it was a meaningful and valuable experience. My only other comment is that you're going to see, and I have to start saying this, in the next year, you're going to see a smattering of courses transition from concurrent enrollment to technical ed. We only have one institution this year who removed 6 courses and hopes to be able to offer them through its technical college next year. But I feel like in the 24-25 year, we will be transitioning things like welding, perhaps automotive, perhaps some other courses away from concurrent enrollment and into technical ed. Makes my heart sad, because I think we run a really good program, and technical ed is still a little bit of an anomaly to me. But this is going to happen probably in the year after next, and it's something that you should keep your ears open for. As Jonathan Fry is going to start meeting with folks in our office and other people on campus. So, but it's always refreshing and cool when this is done, because it's an incredible lift that happens only one time a year. Thank goodness. So we'll publish it on utahce.org, and then Nate will point to it from the early college website on schools.utah.gov. And I'm hoping that by 5 o'clock today, I remember how to do it, and you'll see the new courses. Thank you, Nate. Oh, one other comment. I'm so sorry. Opportunity Scholarship. We did 2 deep dives this year. And we actually looked at the Opportunity Scholarship at the high school level to see which high schools were offering at least 1 language arts, 1 math, and 1 science course. And if anyone wants that data, I can share it with you. The observation is for regular high schools, we had a very, very small number, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the statistic, but a very small number of high schools that didn't offer at least 2 of the 3 courses required for Opportunity Scholarship. A few more charter schools, but we have some charter schools that are very small, and their participation with concurrent is real nominal. But districts, UC institutions are aware of that data and know which districts and which high schools to talk to ensure that students in all parts of the state have an opportunity to earn that Opportunity Scholarship. And I use the word twice in one sentence. That's it. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
So Sid, this is Sandy, can you send that to us by our district?
Yeah, I can. Absolutely. Well, I might just, if you don't mind, can I just send you the whole spreadsheet and you can filter?
I will filter our district. I'd be happy to. And
Okay,
the
yeah,
other question I have related to movement toward the technical college is many of the technical colleges right now, you have to complete their entire program to have it transition to college credit. Have there been any discussions of having points where credit could transfer?
oh my goodness, what discussions haven't taken place? I think that even though we're almost 2 years in here, having 16 schools in our system, there's discussions on a regular, frequent daily basis. And I think that they haven't even gotten to the point of agreeing to what things should be offered only for technical ed and what things should be offered for what we're now calling academic credit. You have provosts, vice presidents for academics at our 8 degree granting institutions. We also call them degree granting versus technical colleges. And the degree granting institutions are saying, well, what? If a kid's taking a business degree and they want to take some sort of a certificate add-on, they have to go across the freeway to the technical college to take it. So we haven't even gotten to the point of agreeing of what should be purely technical ed and what should be purely academic, and where there's blurring of the lines between the two. And so I think it was a little presumptuous of this one institution to pull 6 courses, you know who they are, because that stuff hasn't been discussed yet. It's also the case that even our technical colleges are looking at this from a different perspective than if they were in the seat of a high school. And they have to consider all the processes involved in enrolling students in technical. I will tell you now, here's one of my soapboxes. Y'all, for concurrent enrollment, go through an alignment process that involves the specialists from the State Office of Ed. And these days, because we've been offering teaching and learning courses for like 35 years, it's a lot of it's CTE courses. But those courses have a proposal process and they're reviewed by a specialist. This year, there were 4 instances where the specialist said, yeah, no, the alignment you're proposing, I think there's a stronger one. Let's align this course to this other code. And in technical ed, they don't do that yet. And one of my soapboxes is they should. So when we have to get that foundational stuff done, Sandy, before we can talk about how credit transfers between the system. And I am not retiring tomorrow, but I probably will be retired before that conversation is fully resolved. Okay, in a couple of years. So stay tuned and talk to Jonathan and the folks up at CTE especially, and make sure you're in the loop and you're hearing what's going on. Okay.
Thanks.
So I think Jenna Lynn has a question, but Jenna Lynn, before you ask that, Sid, the screen that I'm sharing, I presume is where the new CML is going to show up, right? Sid, are you muted? Maybe.
Yes, I am. And you are correct. And what you'll wind up seeing in those, see the little blue box, the yellow box, it'll say 22, 23, and then there'll be a box to the right of it that says 23, 24, and the 21, 22 will, slough off. There's like 3 steps involved, and I just have to go find my instructions from a year ago, and it will be done hopefully by the end of the day.
So I put the link to this website in the shared notes. And for those that have not accessed the CML before, please don't try and search anything on this actual website. Anytime you want to use the CML, download the thing with the download button over here, and then filter it using either Google Sheets or Excel.
Yes, absolutely. You can filter and download, I think, just a district or just an institution, but why not enjoy looking at all 954 lines or whatever it is? Come on, it's too much fun.
Go for it.
So this was more of a comment, and I just wanted to give kudos. So in Utah County, we have the K-16 Alliance, which is actually an alliance between the superintendent's charter schools, the UVU, and MTech. And they have been working ferociously to put together pathways that go from MTech directly into UVU programs and to to degree bearing programs at UVU. And so I wanted to give them a shout out because it's been a heavy lift. It's been a lot of work and they are doing phenomenal things in that area. So I just wanted to give them the acknowledgement for that work.
I think that Utah Valley is leading out and is doing. They are, and I think they've had a stronger partnership with Mountain Lands than say other institutions have had with other technical colleges. So that's absolutely. Thank you for giving them the kudos. We'll tell Spencer Childs that. I think that they probably agree with 80% of the transfer credit, and 80% of what should be in a technical school and what should be in a degree. In academic school, but there's this fringe stuff that's hooking everybody up. I've sat in committee meetings where it's been for 18 months trying to define what a certificate is. And I got uninvited to those meetings because it's real simple. What do you have to report to the iPads to the federal government? There's 3 flavors that you have to report. Oh no, that's not good enough. And so we're having it's a culture shift for us. But it's going to be good because it's going to allow for transfer. But you have to remember that there's still 185,000 students in the 8 academic schools and somewhere between 30 and 35,000 students in the 8 technical schools total. And I believe 2/3 of them are high school students taking technical credit. But I could be totally wrong about that. But it's a significant number. So, and a couple of years ago, we weren't even reporting to the State Board of Ed what credit was being earned. We've only had those cactus codes of the 11th for, I think, 2 years now. So we have to, if we report everything to everyone, it'll make it easier for us to do the transfer stuff, I think. Thank you.
Thanks, Sid. Making sure. Okay, I don't see any other questions within the chat. As always, Sid, thanks for coming and giving us the updates on your side, and thanks for all the hard work connected to the concurrent enrollment master list, or what we call the CEML. Colloquially, man, I'm having flashbacks to my speech classes in 2nd grade. That's a hard word to say. So there's a ton of work that goes into that process, and we collaborate. Jonathan Fry and I, especially on the USB side, are kind of helping to triage like all those 150 changes across all the specialists that work at USBE. So on our part, it's very little work. On Sid's part, it's a ton of work. So Sid, thanks so much for all the hard work that you put in every year to update that. We really appreciate having it in this time frame, such that for the subsequent school year, as folks get those courses built, for the upcoming school year, they have it available. Okay, let's jump into legislative updates. This first one, Jill, I wish I had more details for you. There is a bill currently being run by a representative connected to funds for DLI. We found out a few days ago that the bridge funding that was originally going to be a part of that bill was no longer going to be a part of that bill. And so now we're kind of scrambling for solutions to connect the dots such that the bridge program has the increased ongoing funds that it needs in order to continue to operate within the capacity that it is currently operating. Jill, maybe it's worthwhile for those that aren't familiar with the bridge program, if you want to jump off mute and just kind of give a one paragraph summary of what the bridge program is, that would be great.
Okay, great. 1 paragraph. So the bridge program was designed as the continuation of dual language immersion programs after students take the AP exam and score 3 or higher. So the vision of the program was, instead of matriculating into more language courses, those language courses would also allow students to experience something with an early college, preparation, college articulation. We've been successful in developing courses that are actually developed by university language departments. So these credits are 3,000 level language credits, and the course transcript that students receive is transferable to all 6 four-year institutions. We have focused heavily on recruitment and academic supports for student demographic groups that are historically underrepresented in higher education and in high school advanced coursework. And we have some new data that's really encouraging. So I appreciate being part of this discussion.
Yeah, and we've been really appreciative, and the we being Christy and I and others at the state office. I know Yushi is part of this as well. In collaborating, Joe, with you so that we can find some coherence between the efforts that our community is pursuing across the state in like general concurrent enrollment, AP and or IB, and the efforts that you mentioned connected to closing gaps for underrepresented student groups. So finding coherence across these programs has been both fun and rewarding, I hope. I know it has been on my side. So it's kind of imperative that we find a vehicle for this funding. Right now, we're looking at possibilities and those conversations are going up to the superintendent's level within our office, but I don't have any other specific updates. Based on email chains, Jill, I don't know that Sid is in a, Sid, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you have any other updates yet on that either, right?
I'm sorry to say I don't have anything to share. We've had in our office, one of the key people who was advocating for this is out on family leave for the month of January, which is very difficult for Yushi because legislative session starts in a week. But we're having to scramble. And this is another example where the influx of the technical colleges and such a focus in our office on technical education. Like, why do you need Bridge? We wound up advocating, and our advocate is not in the office at the moment. So any ideas you have, we need, and hopefully, if we're lucky, some leadership at State Board of Ed can influence a different perspective with the leadership in our office. So we're working on it.
Yeah, and part of the impetus for these funds is the fact that DLI programs across the state, as you all probably know, are growing year over year, which means there's more students that are ready every year to be able to enter kind of higher level experiences within their language learning. This Bridge program is part of the only space that concurrent enrollment courses above 2,000 level courses are kind of statutorily allowable. Those adverbs are really tripping me up today.
No, it is the only. There is a statutory carve out specifically for Bridge 3,000 level Bridge courses. I think the one thing that we do say in our office that resonates with leadership is that, and Jill will attest to this. Excuse me, we have a disproportionately high number of first generation students and students of color called BIPOC students participating in this program. And we're hoping that this program, in fact, provides, opens access to students to post-secondary. It'll take a couple more years to be able to prove that fact, but we're in a funk, and any suggestions you have are greatly appreciated.
Okay.
So could I give, Nathan,
yeah.
could I just give my understanding of where we are right now?
Yeah.
Just so everyone. So the Bridge funding was originally written into the bill that had DLI. And then I will circle back with Yushi on this topic of funding, and I'll get back to you. But I do want to make sure everyone knows here, just the update is that if funding increases are not secured, there will be no ability to expand according to the enrollment increase that we have already surveyed students on intent to enroll for next year. So we will have to limit about 4 schools opening. We would have to limit section increases. We will not increase the cap we can't run a class that has more students than the universities have agreed on per section, because they feel that limits the outcomes of the students and
and or fewer students than a limit. So you're going to have an upper cap and a lower cap, I assume.
Right. And I'm also restricted in, I'm not allowed to engage with legislation that has to be USHE or USBE. So it's me supporting anyone that would like information or data or outcomes. I'm here to do that. However, I'm not allowed to engage in legislation through my position.
Yeah, and also those kind of new to the acronym game in this space, DLI stands for dual language immersion, and programs that offer students the opportunity across the state to have their education in 2 separate languages, so that language learning is a kind of integral part of their experiences, any like from even early elementary in some cases up through middle school, and then the bridge program into high school.
The mission of this program is explicitly to gain access to advanced coursework in high school and from language as sort of a gateway for students, especially multilingual students, and definitely our dual language immersion students, to access additional advanced courses to have that preparation for college. So we see it as a support and a door that opens kids to feeling part of this community of accessing early college coursework.
Thanks, Jill.
Yeah,
So,
thanks a lot.
yeah, we'll continue to advocate through the channels that we can. Like we thought we had the vehicle in place. It kind of fell apart a couple of days ago, so we will search for a new way to get this funding that is necessary to support students in their continued language learning. Christy, let's jump to IB program distribution revision.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing all of that. I really appreciated learning more about that, Jill and Sid. I used to teach at the university and I worked with international students. So that's one of the things I'm like, I listen closely to that. So thank you for sharing. Talking about the IB, just a simple policy change. Last year, as many of you know, with House Bill 390, that increase awareness and being able to pay for students that are experiencing socioeconomic disadvantage. We were asked to help pay for their early college coursework, whether that be the fees or the test exams. Well, as you know, IB did not get included in that. So this is just a follow-up to make sure that we've got the IB program covered in that as well. As many of you know, written in the law, it is capped at 100,000 for the IB framework. And so what they're planning on doing, in fact, right now they're writing a fiscal note that's going to change that wording to just say that it can not be capped, that it can be more than that 100,000. So that will allow our IB community to have that funding come to them for their students as well, like it is going for CE and AP. So real simple, real easy. So it's going to be a quick, easy policy change on that. Any questions on that one? Awesome. I think we can transition to the next one, Nate.
Thanks, Chrissy. The last one is an interesting one, and it's kind of evolved over the last couple of months. It is called the Post-Secondary Opportunities Business Case, and its intent is to kind of smooth the transition for students from their high school experiences to their post-secondary experiences. So this doesn't necessarily just mean 4-year degree granting institutions. This is both tech ed as well as all other programs that are for 8-10 year. We just want a smoother transition for students in making sense of their kind of educational pathway forward that is also connected to their careers. So what kind of guardrails are in place with regards to, or maybe like structural elements that are in place for this legislation right now? Like we don't have bill language in place yet, so there's still an opportunity to kind of tweak this to fit whatever niche that we all think would be most effective for students. And within the last couple of days, there's also been some kind of shifts in the circumstances connected to this bill. We think that we have found a sponsor And the sponsor is interested in kind of aligning with a framework that was in place previously called Utah Prime. I suppose it still is in place, although currently there's no ongoing funding for it. I think the legislation or the statute expires in 2024 unless it's renewed. And I think funding runs out at the end of this year, right, Christy?
Actually, it was a 2-year pilot. You're right on that. However, they only funded 1 year.
Right.
So
okay.
the funding issue is only the 1 year, but yes, technically it was a 2-year program.
Perfect. So there was a framework put in place within the Utah Prime kind of circumstance that allowed for 3 levels of achievement. The first of which I think was called Launch, and it meant that students participated in a CTE experience. They got a CTE certificate and at least 6 credits of early college coursework. For the second level, which is the I think it's Discover. I always get mixed up between Explore and Discover. I think it's the Discover level. That was 5 CE courses or 15 credits earned in early college and or a CTE credential. Am I getting the CTE words right? Sometimes I mix those up as well.
Yes, you're getting it right. And I just dropped the link into the chat for everybody if you wanted to look at that. There's the 1-pager of the Utah Prime.
And then that top level was Transform. And that was earning effectively a QL certificate, which would account for all of a student's kind of expected credits within concurrent enrollment, or in CTE earned what's this one called, Christy?
Institutional credential.
Institutional credential, which they could use in accessing whatever career they were kind of interested in.
So it was up to 900 hours or 30 credit hours in their related items that they wanted to study.
Yeah. So all that is to say, we are working towards finding a way to establish funding for a potentially evolved version of Utah Prime, while also kind of growing it to not just be about kind of credit earning in CTE and early college, but also other supports that allow for students to have a smooth transition experience. So what the grant system that we're kind of envisioning would do is provide some seed money for those institutions or those communities that are accepted into the program. It'll probably continue to be a pilot for a few years. And so there'll be some seed money to start some of the changes that are under discussion. And then there'll be a competency-based grant system where communities are rewarded based on making progress within 3 metrics. So those metrics are, the first of which related to this idea of kind of making sense of what you want to do, is in engaging in both an early college course and a CTE experience. So in order to qualify, there's some level of engaging in each one of those things. The second metric is engaging in a college and career readiness prep course. So this could be the CCR CE course that we release standards for, but then there's also some other experiences that may qualify in this space. And then the final metric is FAFSA completion, because we see that students who are completing FAFSA are more likely to matriculate into post-secondary educational experiences. So the way that we envision this working is built around some legislation that was passed in Texas a few years ago. And it, like I say, it rewards those communities that see changes within those metrics. So if you increase the number of students completing FAFSA within your community, you would receive money based on that experience. If you increase the number of students engaging in CCR courses within your community, you would receive money based on that experience. And if you increase the number of students that complete both a CTE experience of some sort, and we'll be more specific once we get the bill language in place, we're leaving this a little bit gray at this point so that the sponsor has some agency in making determinations about how they want to set this up. But the number of students that explore both CTE and early college experiences in preparation for like graduating high school and moving into post-secondary, you would receive like money connected to that. So this is the point at which we're going to transition from kind of updates to an engaging section of our conversation. And that is, we would love your feedback on anything connected to this post-secondary opportunity. The structure is kind of in place a little bit based on the business case that our board supported. So we can't like choose totally new metrics, but we would love to hear your feedback. Is this something you're interested in? Was the Utah Prime program something that you were sad to see go, and you were hoping you would continue to have that funding source to kind of help engage students in transitionary success? Can you identify some things that you would want to spend this money on to make it easier for students to transition from high school to college? These are the types of wonderings that we have. So we would love your feedback on this kind of evolved paradigm, maybe we'll call it, so that we can take that to legislators and help advocate for what you want, not for what like we think might be worthwhile. Christy, you have a question and or comment?
I do. I threw it in the chat as well. I was just curious, those 3 metrics, are they weighted equally? How does that look?
Yeah, well, I don't know the answer yet. We have had discussions on both sides. It's a great question. So I would love to hear everyone's thoughts with regards to, are one of those more important than others? Should they be weighted equally with regards to the funding mechanism that we eventually come up with? Feel free to throw things in the chat, and Christy and I will record feedback on the shared notes as they come out. Originally, we talked about doing this as a breakout discussion, but I think it's probably worthwhile to have this discussion across the entire community. So questions, comments, concerns? I would love feedback. What are your thoughts here? And a great, like, if you're like, nope, I'm not interested in participating in this, that is also an absolutely appropriate thought to share. Yeah.
So Nate, sorry, I was going to be quiet today. So as I look at this, and we do FAFSA days in our district, we have a transition course, which probably fits this well. But one of the things we've been talking about is there are multiple ways to do further training. So an example, if I do an apprenticeship, I have to have 144 hours minimum of further training, which, like with machining right now, we're aligning to the technical colleges, which then after they complete the hours would align with the college program. And so again, I look at this, I like the joining of CTE and concurrent, because really your concurrent is to help you get somewhere. And so what is that career that you're taking these courses for? But we have talked a lot, because we have a lot of kids who seem to not see themselves as a college student. How do we get the vision of their other options, which also include further training?
Yeah, Sandy, I appreciate those thoughts. Well, so first of all, one thing that I would say is that college and career readiness course that we design with stakeholders, some of which are here today. The purpose of that course is not college readiness. the purpose of that course is college and career readiness. And so there's aspects of exploration that are kind of part and parcel to that experience that may result in students like taking more early college courses, or it may result in students taking more CTE experiences. I think a lot of folks have those courses set up as a college readiness course and not as an opportunity for students to explore. So I think that that's one thing that comes up for me just as kind of part of this conversation. But I think something that's really important in what you said is that actual job experience doesn't show up within the metrics. And so a wonder that I have is maybe in the same way that we talk about students taking at least one early college course and a CTE experience, that maybe there's something we could add that to the college and career readiness prep course, like metric. Maybe it's like participating in like an apprenticeship for X number of hours would also like qualify that student to earn the community money. Like that metric could be part of the conversation.
And probably you're going to target it as an internship. Once you enter apprenticeship, it's very much like entering college. They get a Department of Labor degree, a work degree, instead of a Department of Education degree. And so I just think that I don't see these, a lot of times we see college and career as kind of opposite sides. And to me, they're one. You go to college so that you can do something.
Sandy, just to make sure I understood what you just said, are you advocating for using internships language?
I would, because if you're going to limit the hours, an apprenticeship could be 5 years of training plus on the job. And so it's very much like a college experience. So I would use internship instead of apprenticeship.
Okay. Awesome.
I guess I just have a clarifying question. This is Jenny Lynn. So would the funding, is it based, because at the top it says LEA is increasing their students in these metrics. So would it be based on the actual increase versus the total participation? And maybe that's the sole intention. If that is, that's great. But if you already are in a school where you have a high participation rate, then that leaves very little room for receiving funding.
Yeah, Joanne, that's a great question. It has not been determined. We've had conversations in both along both sides, and right now one of the trickiest parts about like setting up this grant system is not making it so complex that like people don't understand what the funding mechanism looks like, right? So if there's like aspects that are seed money at the beginning, and then we're splitting the competency funding into like enrollment levels like compared to statewide averages or something, and then also increases, it just kind of increases the complexity of the system, both with regards to administration. And currently, Christy and I have no FTE of ours that are like set up to administer this program. And so we're like trying to balance all of those things and making it realistic to realize. So that's great feedback, and we will continue to kind of, I wish I had a better answer. Right now, the answer is we don't know exactly what it would look like, but I appreciate the kind of question, and I think I hear some advocacy in there for the former structure. Okay, I'll add that to our little bullet here. Looking at the chart. Yeah, so Kim, thanks for your advocacy for the Prime grant, and connected to what Camille said earlier in the day, this idea of college and career coordinators, like whatever that kind of role looks like, that is one interesting thing about the way that this funding is set up, is that ultimately you can spend it on whatever you want. And we'll see, like within statute, there may be some like language that's specifying like you need to do this like somewhere in these bounds. But the reality is, if you don't spend it on something that changes your data, then you don't receive the lion's share of what the funding would allow for, because it's a competency-based system. Like it rewards changes in the metrics that are identified. So that means that as opposed to having to kind of structure the funding to constrain what it's spent on, it's kind of funneling the funding towards doing what to increasing the metrics the grant is associated with. Okay, so let me capture this idea. Other questions, comments, concerns, feedback? Okay, so last question that I would love folks' feedback on. Just in the chat, if you could write like interested or not interested in this funding. Let's say this program was to go forward. Is this funding that you would be interested in applying for if the application process was not super onerous? The way that we have kind of laid out what that application process could look like. Again, we don't have specifics yet because nothing is in statutory language, but we have envisioned it as like, here is my intent. Here's what our community wants to do with this money. And then connecting that to how it's going to increase the metrics associated. Okay, it seems like there is interest in this program. Okay, so we're going to transition miraculously exactly on time, which always feels like a miracle. But one other thing that I do want to say about this is if you have further like wonderings, we'll know in a week or two what the language looks like. We'll include in our February newsletter like updates to this kind of ecosystem. But if you have further thoughts, or you just want to have a conversation about ways that you see this funding being useful, or even like thoughts on structure of the grant itself, feel free to reach out to Christy and I, because we would love to continue to incorporate stakeholder feedback into this process. Christy, how about POPs? What do you think?
Sounds good. Thank you for all your feedback when we were discussing, those different business cases and stuff. It was very good to hear, and really enjoyed hearing about Freedom Prep, how they loved Prime and they saw how Prime really did make a difference in all three of those metrics. So I'm excited. And yes, let's do transition over to POPs, our potentials of practice instead of our problems of practice. We try to look at that through a positive lens. So with that in mind, we'll do what we've done in the past as far as being able to connect and collaborate as the early college space. So we will have some breakout rooms for about 20 minutes. And then we'll come back and share out. But those breakout rooms, as you can see at 10 o'clock on the agenda, we have a couple of breakout rooms with topics, and some we want you guys to help us determine. So the first breakout room is that ongoing discussion. We're looking at those sharing out of promising practices for closing the gaps for all students. So, what's working well with other schools and charters and LEAs, if they have questions or anything, that will be our breakout room 1. Breakout room 2, just based on the feedback we've kind of gotten during this meeting so far, I wrote in possibly the early college high school counselors or coordinators, what that looks like in some of the schools. And if you have questions in that regard of what that looks like, that could possibly be definitely one of our topics. But again, the last 2, breakout room 2 and 3, are guided by what your needs are. What is it that you guys would like to be able to discuss a little further as a group that would help you as we work together to make a difference for our students moving on to taking, college and career readiness courses? So in the chat or, just out loud, share what are some of the ideas that you would like to be able to have for these POP breakout rooms? I guess we can have two. We can definitely, Nate, can you think of something else that maybe you would like to have addressed in here?
I wonder if Sandy's comments about internships, despite the fact that they are kind of adjacent to some of our early college courses, like kind of internship structure and strategy, that could be a third thing of interest. I added the early college high school counselors and or coordinators. Breakout room is the second one, based on our conversations earlier with Camille, as well as Freedom Prep, it sounds like. So I think that could be, those could be three good ones.
I like it. Let's do that third one then. So we'll do that just as you see on the agenda. The first one will be that ongoing sharing of promising practices. Second breakout room is looking at the high school counselors and coordinators, focusing on early college coursework. And the last one would be that internship structure and the strategies that it looks like. So Nate's going to go ahead and open up those breakout rooms for us. And again, we'll be in there for about 20 minutes. We'll come in about 5 minutes before and just say, hey, here's that shout out message of you'll be coming back. But if you have any questions about anything, feel free to hang around before you join the breakout room, and you can ask Nate and I any of those questions before you jump in. Okay.
And if you need help getting to a breakout room, feel free to let us know too.
Thanks for setting those up, Nate. It's awesome.
Yeah, no
So
problem.
Nate and Chrissy, well, maybe Nate, I do have a question for you. So I had a meeting with our coordinators who do concurrent right before I came. And one of their issues is knowing who the concurrent or the economically disadvantaged, which is our target group, who they are because of law, that they're not supposed to have that shared with them. And I think it's a huge issue, because how can you target and work to get those kids in if you can't be told who those kids are? And so ideas of what people are doing, is there a way around that? Because it was a huge issue with them. And then tracking of money spent is also a huge issue.
Yep. Indeed. So let's look at the first one first. What I have heard folks say is that fee wavering status, there is a little bit more kind of flexibility that communities have versus free and reduced lunch like availability with regards to what student falls into those categories. And maybe it's not like more flexibility. It might just be that the people that are in the positions that would help facilitate have access to the fee waiver, and in some cases don't have access to the free and reduced lunch data. So we have had a few things like have come up within these conversations, like strategies have come up in order to ameliorate that. In some cases, it just requires getting the person involved at each school that has access to that information. And like, I know that some schools, like they have the P card and that person is in the room. It's often a counselor is in the room when schedules are being created. And so the fees are paid with that P card, like as the enrollments are happening, like they go on the USHE application space and pay that fee that comes up when they're in that portal. I've heard others have worked with their regional USHE institution to set up kind of reimbursement circumstances that are code-based, so that the USHE institution gives the counselor at each school a code that the counselor can then distribute to the students that waives the fees that are necessary to enroll in the courses. And then USHE charges the district the money that would be necessary to pay for those students. Those are the two that I have heard, like people have the most success with so far. But there are a smattering of other ways that people are like, here's what we're trying. The second one, I don't know that I have much good feedback on yet. Like it's kind of it's one of those like build the airplane as it's like in motion circumstance. So we're gonna like pool together at our April meeting and talk through like what were the main challenges in this space. Is there like some supports that we can build at the state level that helps with this? Maybe there's a different avenue that we can go down with regards to what that reimbursement process looks like. I don't have much of an answer for the second one.
And our biggest issue is tracking. So we've used the P-card process, but tracking is very difficult with that process. And I don't know how the college codes-based system would be. It might be easier because they'd have the student who I guess was coded. But where we need to look at how much was expended on economically disadvantaged, because we've been growing in student numbers. But with that being said, I don't know who's been paid for and who hasn't. And so that's very difficult.
Sandy, this is Sid. We have cajoled Salt Lake Community College into using the DAM concurrent enrollment participation form. They're doing that transition now, and by next year they'll use it. And I will be able to give you a monthly report of who paid what and who used what code. And it's also the case that the institutions have two data elements that they use to identify concurrent students. And that would be, it's a student type in a budget code. That's all that matters. But they know who paid what. But Nicholas Stauffer at Utah State would be able to give you a report if you just called him and said, Nicholas, my friend, I need this data. So that's just not an issue. Please know also in our fourth breakout room, Christy, that in fact, institutions are equally frustrated with knowing which students are disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged, and which students aren't. And yet they're very sensitive and understand that this is private, secure, information that needs to be kept private. And so, it's from one LEA to the next. They're going to have different interpretations of what they can and cannot share. 10 years ago, y'all wouldn't share the SSID. But with the participation form, I think that will solve some of your issues because you can get a monthly report.
Okay. Thanks,
And
Sid.
hopefully they're moving forward with Aleutian. This week, we're giving them $10,000 to do it.
Well, I always joke because I really like the targeting of groups and really trying to increase numbers. But if you're having to show data of what you've done, there has to be mechanisms to do that.
Well, and I'm going to say this tongue in cheek, you guys, if they're using the USHE system participation form, which is a common app for concurrent enrollment, they will no longer being asked their marital status or their driver's license number. So, we think we're hot stuff. The only place you should ask marital status is in certain parts of the southeast corner of the state. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Nate.
You're okay. Sandy, like one other comment that I'll make is it's tough at the kind of administrative level for this grant because like theoretically we could continue to allocate funds in the same way that we did this year. There's a statutory mandate to pay these fees. And so we could have people not accounting for them and just like allocate the fees based on the number of students who earn or the number of credits that were earned in the previous year, right? Like we just use the mechanism that we already have in place. Here's the gripe with that is it doesn't reward those that are actually attending to statute. It doesn't affect change for every community. It doesn't like incentivize every community to pay for as many fees as is possible for all of their students. It kind of gives folks a pass if they aren't like engaging at a level that another is like engaging really highly at with a lot of intention and time and putting money into. I was just having this conversation yesterday with a friend who's in town about like they pack their bag real small on an airplane so that they attend to the expectations that the airplane needs them to, so that their bag fits in the overhead compartment. And then there's a person that walks by with a bag that's twice as big as that bag, like bangs into them, and then is trying to cram it into the top and it doesn't fit. And so it's like, how come this person gets like I paid, I paid to have my bag checked so that I could have a small bag and like use this communal space. So it feels like that to me. Is we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to overcome this barrier that was the number one barrier, both statistically and from a research perspective, that students experiencing economic disadvantage have in accessing early college and or like college grants and coursework currently. So like that's I want to be transparent with that part of the conversation.
Well, and please know, I believe in outcomes. And
Yeah.
therefore, I don't have a problem with looking at funding flowing to where you're improving. But in the same light, there has to be mechanisms we figured out to monitor so we can show what we're doing. Because I'm anticipating that principals have taken and paid for kids for a long time with different funds. I just have to figure out how to get them using the right funds and how to track that usage of funds.
Yep. Well, and for once here, Sandy, being the bigger fish does not offer an advantage, right? Like
It doesn't.
And like in a lot of cases, like the bigger you are, the more advantages you have. Like when it comes to grants, this is one circumstance that there's an extra layer of work to make sense of all the different like schools, programs, funding mechanisms that your like entire community has. Whereas Itinerus, for example, they have one school that they just need to like figure out how to manage. So here's what I can say going forward. Like if we land on a promising practice in this space that we are like, oh yeah, this is the way to do it. I think that'll offer us the opportunity to maybe build some supports that are kind of aligned with what you're getting at. It's like, like if we can engage the institutions of higher education across the board in moving that direction of the code that like students get, maybe that solves the issue of like who needs to know about like fee waiver status. And so at the beginning of this, initially we thought about doing like those types of mandates, and we decided it would be easiest in this first year to make sure there's like a crucible established across the state for innovation. And then when we get to promising practice, then let's implement it. I just didn't want to implement something like when Christy and I had these conversations, we didn't want to implement something that was not actually a promising practice. Like mandate a bad practice.
Right.
We just didn't know.
Hey, Nate,
Hi, Christy.
in the breakout rooms, I don't have access to send out a broadcast. Do you mind sending one out to everybody? And just reminding them to, we'll be back in 5 minutes, but also to share their notes.
Oh, yeah.
If they have any, that would be awesome.
Nate, this is Laura from Salt Lake District.
Hi, Laura.
How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good. I'm sitting here. I don't mean to be a lurker and just listening, but I'm just like drinking from a fire hose, obviously, with the new position that I'm in. And Sandy, thank you so much. Sandy's kind of been a liaison for me for all of this. I have been tasked in this role with concurrent enrollment to just really revamp things and also take a real strong look at what we have, what we don't have, what we should have. Really evaluating the budget, how it's being done, because there's really nothing right now. So grassroots effort here in Salt Lake City, which should be, you know, in my opinion, being right downtown, we should be an exceptional LEA for all of the early college opportunities for kids. I'm really interested in the Prime. I had no idea that existed from my experience leaving USBE as a building level admin and then coming back. It was very new for me to look at. I think that it's awesome. I think that Salt Lake District is a very positive space for opportunities for our kids because we're very much like Granite District. Like we have a huge population of kids that are in need of early college. We also have a very strong IB program in Salt Lake District and a very small concurrent enrollment program. So anyway, I am sitting here thinking in my head how much I would love to have advice, leadership, guidance, direction, what works really good in a district that has 3 comprehensive high schools with the potential of some huge evolution in it. Anyway, I really appreciate just sitting here and listening, but if you're like, hey, if I had a magic wand for Salt Lake City, this is what it would be, I would love to hear that too. Because it can keep going like it's going, but it's not awesome.
I bet Tiffany gave you this task, didn't she?
What was that?
Tiffany gave you this task, didn't she?
No, she kind of was like, here, you can just do things. But, you know, my budgeting mind, I looked at our budget and was like, all right, what have we done over the last 5 years? Well, it's just status quo. And to me, that's a little bit of an alarm.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think in Salt Lake District, there has not been a position that was like fully like trying to make sense of it. It was just like people that had a lot of other roles. And so it was just like upkeep, not kind of like people that were overseeing that concurrent enrollment space just didn't have the capacity to be able to build what I bet they wanted to. So Laura, what I think I would suggest is let's set up a time. It's like my January calendar is a nightmare.
Okay.
But I taught at Horizonte for years. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, totally. So I live very close. So what I would suggest is like maybe we set up like a half day and we can do a kind of consult. There's going to be circumstances that I won't be able to offer very helpful feedback that like your relationship with Sandy's going to be able to be like, ooh, like these things are great for like kind of intra program or like on the ground strategies. Like I think the place that I may be able to provide some perspective is the systems level stuff. Just like being able to talk to other folks and say, oh, this LEA had a lot of success, you know, doing this thing. So send me an email. Let's find a time that we can set up like a kind of consult. Because I like any opportunity I get to come and see like actual programs in action is really beneficial for my kind of perspective and my work. So I like that would be mutually beneficial.
Yeah, I would love that.
Cool. This is an experience that like I've had with some other LEAs. It's always been really positive for me, and I hope worthwhile for them too.
Yeah, no, I knew, Nate, I know your background only because I sat on the interview when you were hired at USBE. I don't know if you know that or not, but it was me and Sarah in the room together while you were on the Zoom in DC. So
I was sitting in the congressman's office and I was like, they can't see, like it was only a voice interview. And so I honestly didn't know that, Laura. I knew that.
That was me. But yeah, so I do know your background more than you think I do. But I was thrilled to see that you were still at USBE when I got into this position, so that makes me happy. But yeah, I truly appreciate the support and appreciate also being able to sit back and listen to what is really great happening in the state. So thank you. And I'll send you an email and we can set up a time to meet.
Awesome. I love that. Thanks, Laura.
Hey, Nate, just in the chat, I just wrote a few seconds ago, but didn't want to interrupt you guys. If you could have the breakout rooms coming back, that would be awesome.
Yes, I closed the rooms and they are 40 seconds out. Sorry, Christy, I didn't
Thank you.
I didn't see it exactly when you wrote it, I don't think. Oh, maybe we're close.
We're good.
By the way, Nate, thanks for answering questions. And Laura, I just make it up right now. I've only been doing concurrent 2 years, so.
Sandy, you
Well,
did a great
I know
job.
your background and you do great things, so I've appreciated your help already with just the back end things on the coding, so thank you.
Okay, awesome. Looks like we've got everybody back. So let's go ahead and share out just a little bit. It looks like we have 2 breakout rooms that most people were in. So let's go ahead, and those that were in breakout room 1, share a little bit about some of those promising practices that are working well, or questions that you had, because the more we discuss it, this is an ongoing discussion, the more we can learn from each other. So breakout room 1.
I'll go ahead and share a little bit what we talked about. We took some good notes on the agenda as well. And I learned a lot of things from Ogden and Wasatch and from Sid that of some promising practices that they are doing. I really like how Ogden pays for all of their student fees that qualify for free and reduced lunch, and also all of their textbooks. I thought that was a good way to close some of those financial gaps. And they're also adding a CE course, the University 1105, that aligns with their Avid 12 course. And I think it was Todd, what did you mention about another pre-English class for ELL learners? I can't remember what was said about that now.
Well, we've just been trying to plow ground, and it sounds like some other districts have been more successful than we have, but it requested actually through our Gear Up advisors who are working with our English language learners that they would really benefit from first-year college English for English language learners, which is taught on our college campuses. Unfortunately, UVU wasn't able to offer that concurrent enrollment this year. They felt like the course was still too young at their university, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to offer that through UVU. We haven't really explored other opportunities for us through other colleges since UVU's refused that this year. Any suggestions would be really helpful. I think it's an equity issue, and that's how we could bring a lot of our ELLs onto the college campus with that first-year English course.
You should tell them about your Gear Up program too, that you're working closely with UVU and getting students prepared that way.
So Gear Up's been around for a long time, but it's really amazing what happens when you get a super strong advisor. And, you know, I'll give a shout out to Kathy Cardenas, who's been at Wasatch probably for 5 years now. She came into our institution and looked at our numbers and just said, there's tremendous room for growth here. She understood the process and how to reach out to students in disadvantaged categories. And ultimately, she's expanded our program exponentially. When she first came, we were probably less than 10. And now we're well over 100. In fact, I would say pushing 200 students through the Gear Up program. And the program is designed to do everything that we're talking about today, from FAFSA to ACT preparation to college campus visit to understanding what courses you need to take in high school in order to transition to college. Early college work is certainly emphasized, and then just the support necessary for families that don't understand how to transition to college is provided through that Gear Up family.
I thought that was so cool, as well as Sid had joined our group and mentioned about, you know, possibly having financial literacy be a required CE course that we get that would fill a lot of gaps because the students are taking it anyway with high school. I thought that was an excellent idea.
Sorry, Nathan, it's my soapbox, you know it.
I had to plug it again, Sid. I had to, because I think it's so great.
So I'm happy to get on another soapbox connected to financial literacy. We built the standards for the college and career readiness CE course to be adjacent to those financial literacy standards, not in place of. So those two courses make a fantastic kind of entry point into concurrent enrollment for those that have the courses available at their institutions. Thanks for sharing, Kim and Todd. And maybe someone else spoke.
Sid.
Right.
That was awesome. Thanks for sharing. All right, breakout room 2. Who would like to share with that one? The early college high school counselors and coordinators. This one sounds like a fun topic.
Okay, well, so there are only 2 of us, Kristen and me. So I just explained the process we've gone through to get our concurrent enrollment advisors dedicated to our district and in our schools, and how we've paid for 2 additional CE advisors on top of what they have at the university to come out. So we've got 3 that are able to come out to each of our high schools. So each of them have assigned 3 schools. And they come and are at the school advising students. The students, make an appointment, either just the student or they can bring in their parents. And they talk about everything, that a student needs. They advise them on what courses to take in high school. They advise them on, what kind of courses are best for certain degrees that they might be interested in. So it's a pretty extensive, college advising program. And they try to help students, whether they're going to Weber State or not. Even though they're Weber State advisors, they're really good about helping them. If they're going to go to the U of U to be in a medical degree, they help them understand what classes are best to take in high school to get them to that point. They do talk a little bit about FAFSA and scholarships and things like that. But they're more dedicated to actual, college advising as far as coursework and that kind of thing. What else, Kristen, do you want to add to that?
I was just picking Camille's brain because we're interested in how it's running in other places. So I was interested in that, like, Davis pays for 2 of the 3, and but yet they're employed like through Weber, so they're giving all the training through Weber. And then so far they've been in since last January, and they've 3 times the amount of advising appointments that they've had in the past.
That's awesome.
That is really impressive. That is so cool. Thank
And
you.
we started this through the Prime Pathway last year. So that's where we were able to pay last year, a hiring him last year, but this year we've just used CE funds to pay for him for this year. But was the best thing that we did with that whole program. So it's been great. And like I said, our students are loving it. Our parents are loving it. Our counselors are even loving it. Took them a little bit of time, but they're loving it too. So
Camille,
That
can
is
I,
awesome.
can I ask a clarifying question? When you
Sure.
say it, you pay for 2 of 3, is
right. So the university has already got some.
okay. So this is like the university college advisors. This is
Exactly.
This is not the college. Let me not. Let me ask this question. How does the Utah College Access counselors come into play? Like, is that a totally separate experience?
So are you talking about the ones from the U of U?
Well, so
That program or what?
yeah,
The
like,
UTech advisors, they started at the U, but each institution is supposed to be having some now.
Yeah, so this is, well, I put it this way, that might be part of it now, but for years, we've had these early college advisors. So a student maybe that wants to go to early college at the university, they could go there and get advising. Well, we felt like our CE people, students needed it just as bad. And so they had already dedicated one to work exclusively with our schools in our district. we've added 2 more to that we pay for, even though they're all Weber State employees.
Okay.
We pay for 2 additional so that they can get to more students.
So Camille, is it full-time that you pay for, and how much time are they in your schools?
So they're dedicated to 3 schools. And so they are at least 1 day a week at each school. And at some schools that are bigger, they're there 2 days. We'd love to have another one because they're so booked out on appointments that we could have another one and then have just each person only at 2 schools, and they would still be full of appointments.
Wow.
That is so impressive.
Yeah, it's been a great thing that we've added. So, and we just feel like our parents and students are getting the dedicated and detailed help that our counselors just simply can't. They don't have time to do, or the training really that a college advisor has. So,
Because this is such a specialized area. It's
Mhm.
amazing how much knowledge they bring to your schools then,
Yeah.
it sounds like.
yeah. And they talk about AP in there as well. We have one school that does IB. So they do talk about those things as well, but the majority of it is concurrent enrollment, because that's we're huge in our district with concurrent enrollment. So.
Again, that's awesome. That is just so exciting to hear. I love to hear about the growth, but more importantly, I just love to hear that the students are just like essentially breaking down the doors to come in to get these appointments. That's awesome. So thank you for sharing that out. We appreciate it. Any other comments before we move on to the next part of our agenda? Awesome. Well, thank you for your feedback, your collaboration. I feel like when we have this part of our meetings, there is so much learning that's going on here, and real applications, and just it's neat to be able to see all the amazing things that are happening in your LEAs, in your schools. And so thank you for sharing, and thank you for all that you do. All right, Nate, we'll transition over. You have a couple of last things to bring up on the agenda.
Yeah. Can I ask a little bit off script here? Can I ask those that are here, would it be like, you can put in the chat something on the level of like uninteresting or annoying to I'm interested and productive. If we worked with Yushi to have the individual Yushi institution CE coordinator that you partner with, like at our meetings occasionally, in order to have kind of targeted discussions together. Now, I want to be clear, like rarely will there only be one LEA with the partner. So it's not like consultation sessions when you would just be talking to them, but like any LEA that partners with that institution could come and have targeted discussions. Like, for example, we could do one in April connected to like this kind of CE advisory sharing that Camille just described. Is that of interest, or like, is that awkward? Like, I would just be interested to know for you, because I know that the relationships with institutions vary across the state. Is that of interest? Is that annoying or awkward? I wouldn't come if that happened. I would like, if you could just put in the chat what your kind of thoughts would be in that space, I would love to know. Okay, feel free if you have any thoughts in that space to throw them in there. And we'll continue on to our next. Agreed, Jeff. I agree with that sentiment for sure. Okay, so our final conversation today is related to a conversation that we started in November. I guess we didn't start it in November, but what we did was we had a kind of community share out with regards to what this phrase targeted support looks like that shows up within our board rule. targeted support is used within the board rule to suggest what happens when someone doesn't make adequate progress. I keep using quotations here because these are the things that show up in board rule that we need to define. We've gotten a few years reprieve from having to have those things in place, but there is an expectation that there are structures like related to every word within our board rule. And so this spring will be the time when we will make our suggestion for what targeted support looks like going into next year. So here is where we landed based on all the feedback that we got last time. We're still talking about what adequate progress means. I think when Christy and I have like briefly had conversations about this, we're kind of leaning towards like the some metric within your student group has like the gap has closed. So as we talked about before, percentage estimates are not always the greatest for every community. It's not the greatest indicator. And so that's where we're kind of moving at with regards to that adequate progress idea. But today's conversation is based on what the targeted support looks like. So for those that require targeted support based on whatever that adequate progress indicator looks like, here's our suggestion. So if we provided an equity lab that was optional for everyone who did not wasn't asked, didn't land within this targeted support space, but it was mandated for those that were in a targeted support space, we think that that would be an effective way to empower communities to kind of put in place strategies that are effective for them by giving them the time and some like kind of structure to those conversations. There would probably be like a minimum number of people from your community that would have to attend, maybe 3, say. And there would have to be someone with decision-making capacity, someone who focuses in concurrent enrollment, and probably like someone that like an educator or someone like connected to students directly. So there would be a day's worth of facilitated conversations within your community, at the end of which you would have a number of action items and strategies that you would have to submit to kind of fulfill your expectations within that targeted support space. So rather than like, and we talked about this last time, rather than like some sort of decrease in funding or putting people on like some sort of probationary status, Christy and I, like, again, within our job descriptions, don't have the capacity to be able to do like individual consultations for folks across the state every year for everyone who might like fall into this space. So we thought that this equity lab circumstance was kind of meeting the characteristics that you all shared during our November meeting about how you wanted that to be designed. So what we would love is kind of feedback about this. And there's 2 main areas of feedback that we would like. The first of which is anyone who participated in previous equity lab experiences. Was that beneficial? In what ways can we make it more beneficial? The second one is, does this seem like an appropriate way to define targeted support within our community? Is this an effective means to help folks that are having like challenges with changing their data to change their data in a kind of positive direction? So this is your last chance today to kind of offer your thoughts in this space, so that when we put things into play in a more kind of official way at the beginning of the next fiscal year, it aligns with what you think is best within the community. Questions, comments, and or feedback? In this space, I'm ready to record as soon as you are ready to unmute, or right into the chat. All we gotta do is break the seal. Someone always has to break the seal.
So I guess I have a question, because I haven't been to one of these yet. So do you provide the data like through what we can get in Tableau? Or I mean, how is that? I'm just trying to think of who I would bring with me to make some progress.
So is that great question, Camille. The way that we have done it, and it won't look exactly like this going forward, because we have some feedback from the previous sessions, but the previous sessions were really well received, at least regarding the surveys that we offered and just word of mouth. We provide all the data for the conversations that you're going to have, but some communities also bring like targeted data about things that we don't have access to, or like things that they want to focus on. So there's a little bit of each, but everyone has the same kind of data set to be able to go off of. And in this case, it's probably going to be our dashboard 3.0 data. Once we get success criteria incorporated, as well as these notes that I took from last meeting about other improvements that we can make to the dashboard, then we'll probably just have people logging into the dashboard and accessing their data in that way. And so there may be like some other data set that we need to kind of bring into play beyond that, but it'll be built around that. And then basically the facilitation that we would do, or like a partner would do, is it's kind of like a design thinking process where you're like, look at your data, do a data dive, and make observations. What's the most concerning? What areas do we need to kind of focus on? And then it's like a brainstorming session. So what ideas do we have as a team here to change the game within where we see issues within our data? And then there's like a culling process where you're like, okay, we want to rate these ideas that we just brainstormed on a kind of scale of like low-hanging fruit, like ease of implementation, and then effectiveness. So like the things that don't take much energy and are really effective, like these are great to start with, but things that may take a lot of energy may also be effective. And so the community has a conversation about, are these strategies things that we want to incorporate? And then you take those strategies and put them into a kind of action planning structure that when you're finished, it's like, here is who is responsible for each of the actions that are necessary to kind of move this conversation forward. That I try to make that as concise as possible. Does that answer your question, Camille?
Yeah, that's, thank you.
Okay, cool. Great
Well,
question.
Nate, I'm kind of in the same place as Camille is. I'm trying to figure out what this would look like. Targets, if we know our targets. I love brainstorming, but I'd also love the people who have figured it out to be there to say, here are some strategies, because I have no reason to brainstorm, figure out what I did wrong if I can get the best strategies and move forward faster. Just because this is one of my jobs. So I really tried to target everything I do. That's an awful statement. So in these, I love the concept of an equity lab, but in the same light, I want supports to know what is working. So I can say, okay, with all these, for us, this would work the best, or this is where we're going to start.
So yeah, it's a great point, Sandy. The biggest feedback that I have for our original equity labs was that there wasn't enough of that. And frankly, like it was early enough in the conversation that we didn't know what promising practice looked like. However, now, based on the data sets, the one that Christy shared in the agenda earlier, we are looking at I don't know if this, like, it will be officially kind of incorporated into the 3.0 dashboard. It might be a kind of 4.0, because this is kind of a big lift from a technology standpoint. But what we're trying to do is like have a measurement that is kind of akin to effect size with regards to systems change across the early college community. So the way that we're going to do that is that we're going to correlate the strategies that are put into play in communities that are most effective at changing gaps as a conversation, or a kind of combination of both percentages and individual student numbers. in order to determine like these strategies are the ones that are proven most effective, that are kind of necessary ingredients for these conversations. And then we're going to ask members of the community to come and share their experiences of implementation connected to those practices. So while one day is probably not enough to like touch on every promising practice that we could identify, we'll have both kind of case studies from individual like communities that may also be participating. Like those things are not, it's not like, oh, they're implementing a promising practice, so they have no need to come. I think no matter where you're at on this spectrum of progress, like these conversations, I hope are still beneficial for you, but we will make sure that we incorporate both from a research perspective and from a Utah experiences perspective, promising practices into that facilitated conversation. It is a great point.
So will you be bringing in like practices that people have reported on in their, end of year reports, things that we submit onto what things we've been doing? Is that where you're going to be pulling that data?
Well,
I'm just thinking, I don't know if anyone's really reported on that other than if they reported in their CE.
Yeah. So it'll be based on the reporting and the application data that we have, but also these conversations. When we look at like targeted kind of individual student group data, we have a feeling, we shared last year at, I think it was the January board meeting during our early college update, there was a few communities that had significant increases in particular student groups, and also in like overall kind of program growth. And so like we have kind of statistical ways to be able to target where growth is happening at a remarkable level. And then we do like we go to those communities and talk to like this is the vision. I say do. We've done this in other areas, and the vision is to do the same thing here. Once we have the high flyers from a like growth standpoint, then we do kind of like interview protocols to determine what promising practices were most like beneficial in affecting that change. That's a great question, Camille.
Well, and on your tool, if you could let us pull variables in. So if I'm I know, yeah, I love data. But yeah, so this morning we were having a conversation about different cultures, and I learned significant amounts about two cultures that I didn't have a clue on. One in particular, who the belief is that if you become highly educated, you leave home, and therefore you leave family, which is the core base for that culture. So as I'm looking, and another one that it's based on value systems that they hold. And so really talking to people about how they've addressed that issue, how they've marketed, it would be helpful to pull those variables and say, do you have these different variables that we don't know how to address yet? Totally.
I love that idea, Sandy. I'm going to write it down, and that might be a 5.0.
Okay.
It would be so cool. And I'm always like, this is being recorded, but I'm going to say it anyways. I'm always like, I wonder how much of IT's money Christy and I are allowed to spend in building these tools. Okay, don't share this video with IT. Other questions, comments, or feedback on this kind of targeted support idea? I appreciate the comments as it relates to like, what does the experience look like? If anyone has any like immediate thoughts, like with regards to support, or like, oh, I don't like this idea, I'd rather you just tell me like my funding is going to be decreased by 20% if I don't change the data. It seemed like that was not something people wanted last time, but I would love, based on this idea, I would love any immediate like reactions folks have to it, or responses.
I had a senior moment. Are you still talking about Equity Labs, or did you move on?
Yep, Equity Labs.
I had the privilege of sitting in on one of the labs that Nathan and his colleagues did, what, 3-4 years ago, the initial one. And I will say to you, Sandy, if you get people like you in a room from half a dozen districts, you will have experts who demonstrate, have proven best practice, and you will learn an amazing amount of information from those people. Sometimes running things off of other folks in other districts, just like the CML process, where we're comparing higher ed curriculum to public ed curriculum, is liberating. My only other comment is, I was sitting in a room listening, and you know me, I can't sit in a meeting and not talk, but I thought that there might have been room for including your partners from public ed, higher ed in that meeting. Not the whole meeting, because you need to have this free and open space to talk the public ed talk and do your thing. But when it came to the brainstorming, including them in the process of coming up with solutions builds a vested interest in the partnership of helping students be successful. And so in that case, I go, oh, damn it, I wish that Spencer had been here. I wish that Brandon and Becky had been here to hear this. But there's no way for that meeting with half a dozen districts, or what do you have, 3 or 4 in that room, for you not to walk away saying it was one of the best meetings I had in the year. End of endorsement.
Some final wait time for thoughts on Equity Lab, or any other questions about what structure might look like. Okay, I'm going to continue with this binary voting process that we have set up today. In the chat, if you would put whether you are supportive or unsupportive of using the Equity Lab as the kind of targeted support strategy that's mentioned within our board rule, we would be most appreciative. Again, like, our goal here is to make sure that the supports we're putting in play reflect the needs that you all have. And like we talked about last time, like punitive, like punishments connected to these circumstances have, in the grants that I've administered time and time again, like, have proven ineffective. So if there's something else you would prefer, awesome. But I'm seeing that there are a lot of folks that are supportive, and yeah, reach out if you have further questions, or if you have other ideas in this space that we might consider. We just have to have something in play by the time we go through our next like matching process next fall. So we are hoping to have like more specifics connected to this conversation in place by late spring, early summer, that we'll share with the community. So Christy, you want to take us home?
Yes, and we are right on time again. What is that, the second or third time in this meeting? I'm impressed. 10:55, and we are on the wrap up and exit survey part. Again, thank you. We are so appreciative of you taking time of your busy schedule to be able to join us, to share your ideas, to learn more, so that we as a community can, work together to support our students. On the agenda, you'll notice at 10:55, there is the exit survey linked. Please fill it out. It gives us a lot of feedback. One of the questions specifically asks, what are some other topics that you in your LEAs want to discuss? And that helps Nate and I to be able to look at those avenues, look at those topics, to be able to bring more information and more discussion for us as a group. So feel free to fill out that exit survey. And again, we hope you have a great day. And if it snows some more and you guys are not at any meetings for the rest of the week, enjoy skiing. Have a blast. Thanks for coming.